Okay, it is 7:06. Good evening, everybody. We're going to call to order the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting for September 21st. The meeting is being recorded and as usual, we are continuing to meet via Zoom due to the continuing COVID-19 situation and our prohibition on meeting in person, especially even outdoors in chilly weather like tonight.
Yeah.
So we are going to continue our meeting remotely as we have been doing. I believe we'll have everybody tonight except I guess Margaret Larson, who's in a school committee executive session, and Brittany, who's on the CONCOM meeting as we speak. Unfortunately, our timing with CONCOM got double booked here, so we'll have to work around that for the future. Anyway, with that, I don't see anybody on for public comment. Cindy, you were telling me somebody was trying to get onto the.
It was to the CONCOM.
Oh, actually, yeah, no, I saw somebody else. Anybody know a William Whiteley? He was trying to get on apparently at 6:30 to MPIC, and I don't know why. I didn't get in. I didn't go in to let him on, so I don't know who he might be. But anyway, if he shows up, I'll keep an eye out in case anybody else shows up. But I don't see anybody else for the public at the moment. So I'm going to assume there's no comments from the public. Can we take a look at the minutes from the last meeting?
I can do it. And
yeah,
you gotta able me.
Able you? Okay, let me
versus
see.
Disable me.
One person share at a time. Who can share? All participants can share. Okay, try that now.
Okay. So I realized, thanks to Chris, that I misspelled Margaret's name yet again. So I fixed it in the copy that, let's see, I could scroll down on this, I guess.
Yeah.
Must be a way here. There must be a way.
Did you kill them, Jen?
Here we go. So in, oh, there we go. So yeah. I fixed it LARSON. I'll do my best to keep that straight. Yeah. Took me about 4 months to get Mike Rosenberg's correct. So we'll work on it. Any other, these are the ones that I wrote, and Chris, you know, we always review them together, and she made a couple changes. So that's the way I sent them out.
Yep. Okay. Anybody have any comments about the minutes, or if not, can I have a motion to approve?
They were great. So I move to approve the minutes.
All right. Second, please.
Second.
All right. Can we have a roll call vote?
All right, Tishman, aye.
Palmer, yes.
Yes.
Christina?
Yeah, aye.
And Fowles, aye. Okay. Minutes are approved as written after the minor correction there. Okay. Good. Thanks, Cindy. You can take that down. So I think our old business are two. They've been kind of the same as they were before, which have been talking about whether or not we need to look at moving on to look at our committee officers, or if we want to again postpone that. Again, there's no particular urgency. It's just something we ought to do before we get too far into the fiscal year. I realize that before we said we'd rather have the entire committee here, and so if that's still the wish, we can postpone that and just focus on the preliminary survey results tonight. So anybody have any thoughts on that?
No, I guess my question is for, what are we going to do about the people who don't participate in the committees that aren't represented going forward?
Right, well, right now with everybody here, we've got 7 people on the committee right now, and that leaves us with let me think, two open slots.
No, three.
Three open slots. We've got 3 at large, so, or there's one empty
2
slot.
at large and 1 parks.
And parks, yeah. And so there's 3 open seats that again, anybody for the at-large seats, we would have select board needs to they need to go before select board to appoint. And Parks, we can reach out again and see if they would like to have anybody join in on our committee. All the others I checked with Lucy this week, and all the rest of us, our terms actually go through the end of June 2021. So we're all on, and unless there's somebody from a standing committee that does not want to continue, we would then have to reach out to that committee to have them give us a substitute, I guess. But
And I know you got a resignation from Mike. I saw him the other day, but he said he still hasn't sent anything to Lucy.
Mike or George?
Mike.
No. Mike, no, we acted on Mike's at select board, actually.
He said he didn't send her a formal. Anyway, but
Well,
he did.
Okay. Yeah.
It's okay, that's done.
Yeah, we did accept his at select board a couple of meetings ago, but
You're right. He sent an email, but no, he said nothing with signature. So anyway, we'll take.
Well, I think, yeah, correct. I think probably he just sent an email to Lucy and that was all it was. And then it was on our agenda. I think George had done the same thing. I'm pretty sure he had, but we never saw it at select board. But as far as I know, he has definitely resigned as well. So, and I guess the question, Francine, at this point in time, since we're not totally sure how much and what the committee is going to be doing going forward, whether we spend time now to think about any new members right now, or we get through the survey and the report out, and then some marching orders about where we might go forward, and then determine, that we might need an extra couple of members on the committee to then more actively recruit later in October or early November, for example.
And maybe when the plan comes out and people read it, there may be people who will want to volunteer because there's things there that will interest them.
Sure, could be. Jim, you were going to say?
Well,
Oh, you're muted,
sorry.
Jim.
I was just going to say that I think if we ended up determining that we need, representation on the board and additional board members, it would be a good idea so that we could tell them exactly what we're doing.
Right.
So
yeah,
all the more reason to kind of figure out where we're going before we solicit that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit premature to bring on, other members to fill in the empty slots right now. I think, another month or two isn't really going to make that much difference. And I think we'll know better what we're doing by that point in time. Okay.
My thinking about your first part of your question, which is, do we want to hold off any longer in electing officers for this year or not? I guess I think, number one, I don't think Margaret wants the role. If she's just taken on the chair of the school committee. I can speak about Brittany. She'd be very capable, I know. I sort of feel that we could go forward and try to do elections.
Excuse me, I'm going to grab some water in a second.
Oh, sure, sure. I'll wait for you. That's fine.
Talking too much tonight.
We'll wait for her to get back.
I guess my only concern, and I have the same one with the open space, is that there are committees who have some responsibility who haven't had an input or even a chance to review this. And that's why somehow getting this information to them to get some input from them. That's all.
What is it? Is that related to having elections now?
No. I'm talking about the membership.
Oh, okay.
Well, it could have a relationship only because those unrepresented committees, upon reading the report, it might spur some interest and to be members, and therefore they should rightfully have an opportunity to take a leadership role upon joining this committee.
What is the rule, the policy? How long can we go in our into the fiscal year without doing this election? Does anybody have any idea about that, or do we need to ask the clerk? Or
I'm not thinking that any of the new people who will be coming on would be an officer. I'm just looking for their participation. As we move this along, I think we could, with the people who are here, always the people who are here, who will be the leadership, and I'm fine having an election if everybody else is.
I was of a different opinion. I thought that new people could nonetheless take a leadership role, but we can explore that now. I'm not opposed to it.
To answer your question, Cindy, I'm not sure that there is a particular time frame. I know theoretically, with the new fiscal year, basically most committees try to get new officers in place or get a slate of people elected somewhere in that July timeframe. And I've seen a couple of committees where that's just been announced, where they've had recent meetings and they've done that. So I think we're still within the time frame that other committees are acting right now.
We didn't hear from Christina. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I was just thinking about that. How much is there to be decided? Perhaps just the vice chair, because I believe, Chris, you have shown a willingness to stay on as chair.
I have. I think we need to formalize that if that's the will.
No,
of
I
the
know,
committee.
right. But
Okay.
you are willing to do that, and Cindy, you have expressed a willingness to stay on as clerk, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So really, the only I know that needs to be voted on, but the undecided here is the vice chair. I don't actually, if we're going to just go with the established body, it seems as though whoever is willing to take the vice chair will get that, and I think it could be settled quite quickly. I have been all along in favor of postponing until we all had a say, but then as I think about the actual reality of it, I'm not so sure that that is, there will be any advantage to waiting or any difference in how it turns out by waiting.
Could we possibly consider doing nominations and doing a vote, but not sharing the results of the vote tonight, and allowing the two missing people, Margaret and Brittany, to vote? And therefore they get a say or not. That's just one approach.
I don't know if you can do that outside of an open meeting. That
Okay.
doesn't sound like that would be allowable or a good practice. I mean, I guess, to follow up on Christina's point, I mean, what we need is anybody that would like to volunteer to be vice chair, I guess. And then we could just be done with this whole issue by a formal vote. I know right now Brittany's on, she's like the clerk, I think, at Concom, so I'm not sure whether she would have any, or she may be something else there too, I'm not sure. I don't know what she is. She's on something at Concom. But, so.
Well, Christina or Jen, would you be interested in being vice chair, either of you?
I would not.
Neither would I. The reason that I don't is I don't feel like I am of leadership stock. I'm not.
Christina.
You should put your camera on, Chris.
Yeah, put your
Camera on, yes.
Like I'm the boots on the ground kind of a person, and so I'm disinclined toward that. But do we have to have a vice chair? My committee doesn't. Historical doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, theoretically, you should have one just in case the chair isn't there, so that a meeting could happen. But
correct. I understand.
But I don't know. We could also vote to not have one, I suppose. Yeah. Jim, you thought?
I think we should, as I'm watching the time go by, and I'm watching Ken, who
Yep.
we're consulting, I don't think, if we can't decide this quickly, we need to move on. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Because we're not utilizing Ken's time well at this.
Yeah.
So let's move, I'm in favor, we can move on.
Let's just wait let's move till next month. Let's postpone it one more month.
All right. Moving on. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So basically, we are on to our sort of combination old and new business. Old business and the fact that we have finally completed the survey, and now we have some at least preliminary results. So Ken, I'm really going to turn this over to you. I believe you can share the screen and pull up the survey results. And I don't know how you'd like to proceed, if you'd like to kind of go through slide by slide and just see what it's telling us so far. I think we probably would like to have some discussion around, you know, what information is it that we would like to be sure that we get from each particular question, and whether we need to have ideas of how to cut the information or slice the pie a little bit differently or whatever it may be. So with that in mind, I'll just turn it over to you. So please go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. I think that you had it hit it right on the nose with regards to how the survey should be shared with the community. Understanding that this is a great turnout. You have 896 complete survey responses. And, you know, I don't necessarily need to go through all of these, but
Could you make it a little bit bigger, Ken, if you can?
let's see.
Yeah, there we go.
Let me see if I
Okay.
can.
Or-
Can you see
Yeah.
it?
That's better. Yep, thanks. Perfect.
So, you know, I think that how you want to look at any certain demographics and explain that, or any sort of question to explain how you are going to approach your implementation plan, or you know, prioritization of one task over another that you've already identified through your committee work prior to me coming on board. Yeah, I think, you know, I probably assumed that, you know, there was going to be a good chunk of what I, you know, just kind of talking and looking at the initial survey results of what the sentiment of the town would be. And I think, you know, it's established in how the town would like to remain. I mean, you have a third that want the rural community that it is today.
Yeah.
Understanding that there's some minimal commercial development. And yeah, I guess, you know, it's status quo. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think understanding that's important.
Yeah. Ken, can I make one quick comment on that first
Sure.
line? Just
Yeah.
an observation on the very first one. What strikes me as I looked at that first pie chart, in terms of the years living in town,
Mhm.
we've got a pretty good even representation of all, you know, all numbers of years in town. I'm actually pretty amazed that that's been, you know, relatively equal amongst all the decades of people in town. I'm a little bit surprised at that, but I think that's a good representation, though.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, you know, it's up to the committee on how you think that the data should be presented. I think I'm of the, you know, I don't necessarily want to suggest calling out certain aspects of the demographics who decide, or certain aspects of the demographics to feature with regards to, you know, implementing or drawing attention to that. I think presenting it as an aggregate, the way that it is presented in this responses, I think is probably the mode that you'd want to do, and present that either in the appendix and in the narrative, understanding that it's supposed to reflect the entirety of your population, or the people responding to it. Noting, in fact, that you do have a good mix of the respondents, as Chris pointed out.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Hey, Ken,
Yeah.
would you, I don't know if you're like a stats guy frequently looking at these kind of demographics, but when you look at this pinwheel, would you say it's pretty typical of a town our size, or there's more newer people than most towns our size, or less, or?
No, I don't know if that necessarily, you know, I'm not a statistics person, but I don't think that this necessarily suggests anything other than the town was able to get a good sample of the residents who reflect the way that this question is posed. You know, understanding that you wanted some sort of data that suggested that, whatever those respondents that live in Southampton for the past 5 years versus the respondents that
Yeah.
have been here longer.
I have to remind myself this is the respondents, not necessarily the breakdown of the town. So
Correct.
Right.
So
it's-
these are the 896 responses.
right. So
And
the
of
survey did a
those-
good job of hitting all these demographics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and of those 896, 840 filled out that question. But so I don't know if there were any specifics. I think going through the data, understanding it, I think it was pretty. I could conclude that based on the fact that they or the majority of the respondents liked the way that the town was, growing or managing growth. Some of the responses in other questions reflected that, specifically with, let's see.
Let's not go through them too fast here, because I think none of us have really studied this very well. So we'll appreciate your observations here.
Yeah.
Could you possibly go through them? You did
I mean,
one,
we can
go
we
to
can go
two.
slide by slide.
Yeah, and just in case we want to ask anything.
Yeah.
That's one, yeah.
And then this is your
So very few renters, obviously.
very few renters and very few respondents who do not identify as the homeowner. And in filling out a couple of the inputting in the hard copies of the survey, I know there were a couple that were those that identified under the age of 19. Was that it? Majority female identified that responded to the survey. Age.
Yeah. So what's our demographic here? So we've got.
So I mean, there's a good. You do have it. Kind almost looks similar to your responses that were presented in the first slide, which was the how many years
Years in
Southampton.
Yeah.
I think hopefully a little more than half are under the age of 60 that responded to this. So that could be or even identifying that a third of the respondents identified as under the age of 50.
I was shocked that over 60, it's like 41, 42%. And I know that was only represents the people who completed it. It's not necessarily translates into that's the age distribution of residents.
Right.
Okay.
But we have that data and can at least present that within the action plan, suggesting that it may mirror the demographics of the town.
And is there a way to pivot the data? So for example, you could slice it and look at, all right, so of the ages 60 to 69, they answered the questions this way, for example.
Yeah, you totally can. So I'm just gonna quickly stop sharing because I downloaded the raw data, which is this more columns.
Jim, that's exactly what I thought of. I'd be interested in how each age group kind of responded to these questions so that you got a sense of, so that I guess we would want to think whatever we might want to implement, there would be a fair distribution to address the priorities, at least one among each of these groups, just for cohesiveness.
Sure. I think that I have to figure out how to do it nicely, but at the very least, with the raw data, the way that it's presented, you know, I know somewhat my way around an Excel spreadsheet of filtering data to show, you know, what responses came from what other, you know, column, right? So you can hide everything else and then present data that way. You know, like this one has to be refined because the data read that those that lived here from, what is it, 11 to 20 years, this reads as November 20th. So it's like, this is like raw data. So this was what was presented. And each value has everyone's responses. So I can take a look at individual responses. And this is what I'm going to use for at least presenting the question 18, which were the streets, and then also the where people came from, or where people, the respondents identified where they live on what streets. But to Jim's point, yeah, you know, if there is a specific data set that you want to explore, understanding that you'd want to be able to justify, you know, either refining your goals and strategies in your implementation of the master plan chapter in a certain way, that's something that, you know, we can explore further.
Right. Well, yeah, for me, selfishly, it's obviously I want to know how seniors responded to, you know, the desire for senior housing in town, for example.
Yeah.
There's an assumption that there's a demand there, but it is an assumption. It'd be great if the data, what the data actually said.
Yeah, and a few others. I mean, like the issue about the importance of, you know, developing commercial areas or whatever. You know, was that, you know, predominantly yes via a certain age group, or, you know, it was not important by, you know, how many? I mean, how do those kind of things break out? Or even the sidewalk question. You know, I remember on the hard copies, I saw some that were writing in bold ink of no more sidewalks. You know, so
that's
like,
definitely captured. And you know, I input all the physical responses on the hard copies on a separate Word document. And you'll see on this document, well, you won't see on the report, but you'll see when, you know, I produce what each of those responses for the additional roadways and for where the respondents are coming from. There was a lot more to the question, a lot more to the answer than just the street.
right.
You know, it was some documentation of their feelings about the process, of their feelings about, you know, certain things going on in town, unfiltered. So, you know, however it's presented to the town, you know, we can figure out, you know, how that happens. But yes, to your point, Jim, and I think, you know, everyone has made a suggestion that if there's a certain data set that you want to look at, particular to how one demographic responded to a question, I think that's, you know, that's appropriate. Again, trying to figure out what ends up being presented to the town in the way that it affects your goals and strategies and how you present those in this updated action plan. That's another conversation to have too. Let's return to this. Okay. Majority couple. You got a good, I think you got a good, and so this was a question that people could check all that apply. And it looks like a majority of the, you know, the majority of the respondents were a couple, and you have a third that had school-age children. So I think that's you know, that's something to draw attention to.
Right, this is going to equal greater than 100%, right? Because you've got multiple. The total bars should be more than 100. if I can choose more than one thing.
It doesn't, it is 100,
That's interesting.
unless people didn't choose more than one.
Well, your number of responses will be more, right? But
Yeah, the number
More
of
than-
responses will be
more than the 896, right? Or not? Or did one
Just by
response?
looking at this, it
Five,
suggests that.
six. No, it's not more than 896.
No, it's not though. I mean, so if you could choose 3 choices or up to more than one would think we would have,
More than 896.
Right.
Indeed.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And
So I'm
Yeah.
not so,
well,
the veracity of this slide, the data, I'm not,
this might be one we want to double check something on, or,
This could go a little more than 100%. I was just doing the, fast math in my head. It could be a little bit higher than 100%.
yeah.
could be a lot of people assume they could only pick one.
I know in the hard copy there were more than one.
Mhm.
Whether or not the online copy people didn't do that, I'm not sure. But I know that was, you had the ability to choose more than one. Whether or not people did, that's another question.
What's interesting here is just looking at that last one, the multi-generational housing abilities there too, as we look at senior issues, housing issues, maybe going forward. 61 people at least indicated that was their situation.
Mhm.
Nobody with rooms rented out. That's interesting. Do we not rent out rooms in town? Are we not allowed to?
I don't think we are, actually. I
Really?
was going to look that up. Keep going, and I have the zoning bylaws right here in front of me. I was going to look it up.
Just curious.
I don't think it's explicit that you allow that.
Okay.
Well, I have a feeling that it isn't allowed, because I ran into someone who said they were living with a family in Southampton and they refused to give the address because they didn't want anyone to know.
Uh-huh.
So maybe there was a personal thing, or maybe they felt that the town didn't allow it, whatever the situation was. It was a number of years ago, but
Okay.
And I also, there's a couple people that have Airbnb, but they're keeping it very much on radar. Which, that's what I understand.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Interesting.
So they may not have been as explicit in responding to
Yeah.
Yeah.
or
Well,
as it's coming.
This probably isn't a valid point, but just a thought. Would a person who is renting a room see themselves as a part of the community, or maybe they're feeling like it's a temporary situation,
Yeah, maybe.
What to say.
Well, and then you determine what that one person's response was with regards to, the following question, which is, or one of the later questions, which is about, do you see yourself remaining in Southampton? What are you satisfied with your housing? And then the subsequent questions after that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So this was how Southampton should evolve. Okay.
All right. So this, I think, is, where you have the more than a third suggesting.
Yeah.
And then you look at the second response, and it is diverse housing options that balance commercial and residential growth with agriculture and open space. There were some individual responses that riffed off this by adding like another sentence here right after this. And I think that's clarified in the notes that I put into a Word document.
Before we move on, can I just go back to that one quickly? I find not only that fourth option down, the number pretty close to the first one, but as far as percentage, but almost a similar choice to number 2. almost. I don't know. And if you combine them, I don't know. These feel to me, there's a lot of room for interpretation, which can be advantageous and disadvantageous. I don't know.
Jim, I felt the same way. I know we massaged these so much during our planning stage. We really did. But then even after it was all finalized, I believe I see what you're saying. It's an interpretive situation, and it's just a different way of saying the same thing a little bit.
Yeah. Is there any way to cross tab this either with years in town? For example, not necessarily age, but years in town, whether that might show us a different slice of information? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just as a thought, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Chris. I think it's also interesting that 4% took the time to describe their own vision, which to me is a large percentage. Said, I don't like any of these choices you presented me. This
Yeah.
is what I want.
Do you have?
And you're a survey guy, but I think my sense from a survey, that's a significant number, 4%.
Well, yeah, I think, the fact that I think, Jim, that you said that people took time to write down what their vision was is telling, that they didn't feel that the previous responses captured everything.
Yeah.
And because I input 149 of these, I can't recall if all of them that checked off that were applicable. Like you could make the assumption that the response was somewhat related to the question. It may have been more than it may have just been a comment, but that's captured. So
Now, you mentioned, Ken, somewhere that you had a Word document or some notes or something. You didn't send that to us, right?
no, I
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed it. Yeah.
yeah, I literally just cut and pasted before the
Could
meeting.
you, not to belabor this, but could you easily pull up one or two comments of those that had a different vision than what's here? Just out of curiosity,
Let's see.
if
I
it's
can-
not too complicated, but I'm just
Well,
curious.
4% of 896 is a fair number of people.
Just curious what they thought it was, or what they would like it to be.
So this is exactly it. So if they didn't like that, there would be
Okay.
this column right here. Discourage development, assess a premium on property abutting protecting land.
Huh.
Please have a McDonald's and Taco Bell open in Southampton. Various housing and much more commercial development in more areas. Slightly increasing town center business while increasing conservation areas, including farm and forest. Various housing and more commercial areas, various housing options, much more commercial areas.
Not very different than what we gave them as choices, though,
No.
really.
Nothing.
And again, I think as I mentioned to Jim is, this may have just been an opportunity for them to put something there if they didn't, they wanted to comment on the question.
Yeah.
We gave them a platform.
Yeah. Housing and much more commercial areas, I don't know if those, and I already could count what, 5 of those?
Yeah. But
freedom.
housing is mentioned many times, a variety of housing. So, okay, what's this one now? Freedom? What?
Freedom, whatever the landowner wants within existing regulations that are already slanted towards no development.
Ooh.
Wait a minute, read it. Wait a minute, stop. I want to read that. Freedom. Wow.
So feeling that the current regulations are anti-development, huh?
Southampton needs a lot more commercialization. Areas of town need to be rezoned to allow for this. Community with limited residential development unless and until the town government can find a way to increase business development and get the town's fiscal situation in order. Another, diverse housing, including low-income housing with minimal commercial development. So that was the one that was a riff off one of the responses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I mean,
Just curious, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
let's see. Okay. So yeah, I'll share this. I just downloaded and started hiding columns because the columns, all the columns show also like the data points. And so I was just trying to figure out a way to have that more user-friendly.
Yep.
So I'll share that. Somewhat important, almost 40%.
So
for
not
the-
an overwhelming, very important though.
no.
What I noticed with all the questions that people had to rate, that the highest percentage was in the kind of the neutral category, not really wanting and not really not wanting. It was just like a no,
Right.
you know?
Hmm.
And I would agree. Nothing in all the slides I saw really jumped out at me as like, whoa, there's a mandate there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Didn't sense that.
Oop.
Go back to 8 for 1 second, if you can. Yeah. So you can see where people reside. 1 in an efficiency or studio. 94.1% in detached single-family house. A few apartments, few townhouse condos. That's you and me, Jim, when we were putting up the sign, you know, how we kind of tripped those people going over to the condo area there. And 1 accessory
Right.
and 11 single-room occupants. That is a little confusing to some people. I mean, some accessory apartments may in fact be 1 room with a bathroom, right? Kind of like a studio sort of apartment.
Well, then it wouldn't necessarily fall under SRO. I guess, you know, context for the person filling this out would really need to understand the difference between an accessory apartment and an SRO.
That's right. Sorry.
83% think that there's sufficient housing options.
I have to say, I'm going to take back a little bit what I just said about no mandate. This isn't a mandate, but I'm surprised at this number. That's all. I thought there'd be a higher percentage no.
Yeah, so did I. And is this one that we would want to cut another way, either years in town or age-wise at all, or is that?
Maybe age-wise. Of course, another way that this can be slanted is if maybe it's such a small number because the vast majority of people who are answering this survey are already homeowners. It's not like we're surveying people who want
Right.
to live in Southampton.
Yeah, true.
They're already here.
Yeah. Well, and I guess what we'll be revealing too are what, you know, why people, you know, these other questions about why they're not satisfied, for what reasons, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, Chris, that 17% that said no, was that 90% of the 20 to 29-year-old respondents.
Mhm.
In other words, we've had a couple on our committee who pretty much said they can't afford to live in town.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we might want to, you know, dig deeper into that one a little bit, Ken, maybe.
Okay.
It would be interesting to see if it's people on the young end and people on the older, you know, the upper age limit, and see that might be
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
respondents. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think you often hear the comment, well, not often, but I've heard the comment more than a few times about, you know, somebody who's, you know, of, you know, the 70, 80-year-old or whatever age group, and just saying, you know, I really can't afford to live here, and I don't want to move out of town, but, I need to downsize and there's nothing for me to go to. I have no choice but to go to Armbrook or someplace else.
Right. They don't have options in town.
Yeah, so I somehow, I don't know if this is going to reflect that for us or not, but I guess I thought it would be more conclusive too, that the affordable housing issue would be a stronger need than what I'm seeing on the surface anyway. So I don't know how we get at that, if that's a true or false thought.
Well, yeah, I think this is one of those opportunities where doing that additional analysis of the demographics of the older population and trying to capture to see what they felt was their
Mhm.
and I mean, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head based on the ones that I input, which were from older residents. I would say that there was a good amount of those that felt that the housing was too expensive.
Mhm.
But it's interesting.
Or they were suggesting that in some of the notes that I captured, because they would provide a qualifier saying, not yet, or in 5 years I can see this happening to me.
Mm.
And that actually is probably reflective of the next couple of questions. But
Right. I was just going to suggest that, Ken. I think it's reflected in this slide because that's a pretty low percentage who are not satisfied.
Mhm.
But either maybe people didn't understand the question, or to your point, they can project not being satisfied in a few years when they need to downsize. But right now, if you answer the question literally, I'm happy.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know young people. They're kind of outside my age range. Couple that I do know that I socialize with, but the couple that I do know, can't afford to buy in the area. They would love to, but they can't.
Mhm.
And so they leave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
This one I found, the answer here that surprised me was 42% saying it was too small. I really didn't expect that at all.
yeah. So it's of the ones of the folks that answered that they are not satisfied.
Right.
Oh,
42% said that they were not satisfied because it was too small.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's only 38 respondents on
right.
this section.
Mm.
Yeah. So you have to understand. So, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, that's interesting. So or at least I'm assuming from a housing perspective, those who aren't satisfied either can't afford, or it's too much space to the senior downsizing kind of perspective. But this data doesn't seem to bear that out. I'm not happy because I bought a house, maybe it's what I can afford, but it's not what I want.
Well, I think this is what Margaret said at one point, that she was thinking of her own personal situation where what they would really like is a larger open space. Did she say something like that to us?
Yeah, I recall that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I think the way that the previous question was worded, it doesn't include that they may have qualified it later by saying, I may not be satisfied with my present housing because of this or that.
Mm.
Well, did anybody comment when they said other? Was there any description of what comprised that? Because that's almost the second highest number of responses.
In this question, no.
That was
Yeah.
number 11. That was
The previous one.
Yeah, I'm talking about on 11, it had 11 responding in the other category.
Oh, okay.
you're at 10.
Yeah, go up one more slide to 11.
Oh.
At the bottom.
So 29% other, so 11 responses.
So
Yeah.
let's quickly look at
Yeah,
this raw data.
that's a pretty significant number.
Yeah,
That
And
was
the fact that,
question
yeah.
11.
And 38 of the 40 people who said they weren't satisfied actually went gave the detail behind it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So this was the question. I am not satisfied with my present housing because, and this was the other.
Yep. Live with family.
Oh, doesn't want to be there anymore. Yeah.
It's understandable.
Loud traffic, noise.
Okay.
And this is a personal
Shooting range.
reflection of where
Oh,
it
I can
lives.
relate to that one.
Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah.
Very disturbing. You see the shooting range relocated. Oh yeah, fat chance.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a long, that's a long response.
Wow, wow.
Wait a minute, you're going too fast. I want to read the end of it, Ken.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, just real quick here. I would like to see the relocated tax revenue of the town, and no one on the board of that business lives anywhere near the range. Oh, interesting. Done a little research. In fact, it is owned all by out-of-town people. The shooting goes on for hours on end, and I can hear the gunshots in every single room. Keep going. Of my house. This is a residential area. I can only guess what street that is. I know exactly what street. And my rights as a very expensive taxpayer needs to be respected over a business that pays taxes. And the lead.
No taxes.
Oh, no, how come it doesn't pay any taxes?
Probably nonprofit.
The shooting range?
It might be.
Wow. And the lead from the gunshot goes directly into the ground. Ooh, this is bad. We gotta look into that.
It's
I
a
don't think
novel.
there's lead. I don't think lead is in Shaw anymore.
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's accurate.
So
Interesting.
that's one response. There's another one. Let's see.
That's
got
not
a-
a response, that's a novel.
Yeah,
Very
Two-story, stairs get difficult.
yeah.
Feel for that person.
Traffic
Sadly, due
commercials.
to development, there's increased traffic. Commercialism is not helping but destroying our town character.
Ooh,
Taxes for the services received are too high. Needs may change as get older, and my preference would be to remain in my community. So it's important to have options of seniors that can meet their needs and be affordable.
okay.
Taxes. Too expensive to manage. Would like to see more one-floor homes for elders. House is zoned highway commercial, location is noisy, subject to idling motor vehicles, and is on the Barnes Airport flight path. Yeah.
Real.
So those were 11 of those responses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was helpful.
So noise is the common theory there, pretty much.
Noise or complaints of the surroundings of where they're actually within the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, well, never mind.
So if you were to move to another living situation within Southampton someday, what type of housing do you anticipate would meet your future needs? Owning a home. And I don't anticipate requiring a different housing situation. Yeah, I mean, I could also see that some of the respondents probably, owning a home when you're owning a home, that's also an answer. So it could be either, or you could read into that either way. But I would say a majority by taking those two.
But look at your third highest right there, living in a 55 plus independent community.
Yeah.
I mean, that is something I think for us to think about, right, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah,
is,
and I think, based on the master plan that was, drafted and adopted by the town or the planning board in 2013,
mm,
and understanding what the planning board has done to explore the senior housing, that's important. Again, understanding what changes may need to happen is also probably the thing that needs to be explored.
And this goes hand in hand, owning a house, but owning a house that's on everything on one floor.
Mhm.
mhm,
And that ties in very much with the somewhat
mhm.
over 55.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. And this is actually
Yeah,
data that a developer, I think, would want to see, because there's nothing in here. There's implied affordability in here, but a 55 plus independent community isn't necessarily affordable.
That's right, yeah.
Either as a condo or a cooperative unit.
Right.
But there's certainly demand here. If I'm a developer, I'm very interested in this.
Okay. Good.
so these, so,
This is, in my opinion, from my little brain, really hard for me to come up with what this means.
well, and like you say, like Francine said, a lot of people just kind of go down the middle because that's the easiest thing to do, and whether they really, have
Right.
adequately reflected on things. Although some of the things that are strongly opposed, I mean, maybe we would just go down the strongly opposed column first and see what that shows us.
Apartments and conversion of single family to multifamily.
And that seems odd to me. Why wouldn't people want to have houses converted to or the conversion of single family to multifamily housing units? That's if they had to downsize and we had the opportunity to rent out another part of their house, or
I mean, it doesn't necessarily capture, and maybe the respondents felt that meant apartments, or multiple apartments and not just an additional unit, which that also captures that, right? So if you were to make your single family to a duplex or, have a,
right.
yeah.
So in our zoning bylaws, there are specific, it's a special permit to
Mhm.
convert to a multifamily, and the size of the square foot, and also I think the lot size has to comply to certain requirements. It's not a simple thing to just say, like my house, it's only 4 bedrooms, only 2 of us live here, can we turn this into a multifamily house? No, it's not going to be.
Yeah, and I think, a good analysis is whether or not someone has actually successfully gotten a permit for,
Yeah.
converting their single family home to a multifamily or to add an additional unit. Even accessory apartments, it's not, that strongly opposed when compared to neutral, but understanding, when I was at least putting in the hard copies, a lot of them I recall saying strongly opposed.
Mhm.
Mm.
Well, apartment buildings are certainly not high on the agenda.
Yeah,
Right.
We can cross that one off, I guess, right?
So yeah, if there was a master plan, if there was a goal or an objective within the master plan that suggested, of exploring apartment buildings,
Mm,
that you can talk through that and respond to why that's not a priority anymore. However, I'm sure that other people in town and the advocates in town would suggest, at least having the ability to do that, which, Cindy provided the example that you need to go to the planning board to get a special permit.
yeah.
That ability still exists.
Mhm.
But again,
So-
you're gonna want to use this for a various, ways to apply for grants, right? And if the master plan has no suggestion of additional housing, considering the housing shortage in the state, that's going to be a comment that maybe a granting agency would be looking at. However, obviously you have your survey information here that is helpful to, state
Yeah.
the case.
Well, if you look at the strongly support column, right, you've got the lead is down at the meeting the ADA,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the top one, a detached single family home. So again, it could be that homes with only one story, possibly tying into that previous question somewhere there too. But I mean, that is fairly telling there too.
Yeah.
Because the ADA one had the fewest objections and the most in favor
Right.
of any of the situations we described.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have found something in the zoning bylaws I just want to read, because we were talking about an apartment perhaps that, or I should say a room that doesn't have any cooking facilities. Up to 2 lodging units with no cooking facilities in an existing dwelling by special permit only is allowed in residential, rural, or residential neighborhood. In residential village, we have very tiny little residential village section of our town, and it is allowed by permit. And it is allowed by special permit in both of our commercial categories. So yes, but with rules.
Right.
Yeah. Now, is this one, is this particular question another one we want to look at a different way as well? Or are we just going to make an assumption of age responses here? Or I'm a little bit surprised at the tiny homes. I would have thought that had a little bit more. Well, it's got a fair amount in the middle though. Yeah. Okay. It's not that bad, I guess.
Yeah,
I was-
that wasn't higher.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would reflect a younger demographic, for example, than the older population. But
Right.
I don't know whether that's worth splitting a different way. I don't want to cause more work. I just want to be sure that we're understanding what we're seeing here and that we're looking at all sides of what people
Yeah,
are trying to tell
I
us.
don't think that's an issue.
Mhm.
I can create some sort of analysis on that.
Okay. Yeah. No.
So almost half support in some way pursuing grants for rehab of limited income homes.
Mhm.
That's great.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this public transport, that wasn't very popular, was it? Or was it?
No.
Now,
But this was one where you could answer more than one, and there were some people that provided 1 or 2 or 3,
Mhm.
depending on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were obviously a majority that didn't expect to ever use public transportation.
Yeah.
and the other thing is, because we don't have it and people don't have any experience with it, then they don't want it.
Right.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's it.
I would also argue that we're a very car-driven society and culture in this country anyway, so those numbers look shocking to us, but I suspect they're in line with other communities. In fact, for all I know, those seemingly low percentages that are looking for public transportation are higher than typical.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. This sidewalk question was one where people got it all mixed up on the
the
paper
hard
copy. They did not understand the ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on our new ballot coming up in in November with the ranked choice voting, we may have some interesting thoughts here. But people had a real tough time with this on the hard copy. I don't know how they did on the. I think the electronic copy didn't allow them to futz around. You had to choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and some people just put 3s all the way down. Some put 6s all the way down, which I suppose you could interpret as not important for any of them. Or I don't know how you would interpret it, but anyway, what's it telling us here? Anything in particular? Our highest is going down to the Cumberland Farms, the Shelburnes. Huh, interesting.
There's
Yeah.
motivation there.
Say what?
There's motivation there.
Yeah, right. Ice cream?
So yeah, I think as Chris mentioned, at least on the hard copies, that was a confusing question, and it was very clear on how, you know, the respondents answered them. But some also added notes saying, you know, don't, there's no reason to extend the sidewalks or whatnot. And I have that captured on a separate document.
I think this one too, personally, would be an interesting one to slice demographically, because my assumption would be that this would get, you know, a certain demographic on this one.
But I will tell you, during this COVID, the sidewalks, whether they're on Glendale Road or Pomeroy Meadow, I see so many people walking,
Yeah.
more than I ever have. I mean, because that's really the only way people can,
Mm-hmm.
you know, remain socially distanced and still get some exercise. It's not the
Yeah.
only way, but I mean, it's the easiest way for people.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm surprised if people wouldn't, you know. Yeah, anyway, I can't understand the data anyway on this one.
So the next question is this word cloud. I think for the purposes of this, you know, just quantifying or counting how many times a certain street is probably worthwhile. I'll just quickly share.
Yeah. Yeah. This doesn't tell us from where to where
No.
in many cases. So I think
And
this
yeah, it doesn't tell you where to where some of the responses from the actual survey does suggest that, but there are also just streets that are listed.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, this is a good visual, I think.
Yeah. So this would be list streets and or parts of town where sidewalks should be installed or extended.
Mhm.
And so, you know, quantifying this, and, you know, some did provide some context and some personal stories about certain roadways. Some write no, nowhere.
But I think you're right. Is look at it. It would be interesting to sort of do a head count of, you know, the Pomeroy Meadow roads, the Glendale roads, the whatever. I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you see the comment? You're close to it right there. It says, as long as the town maintains them, older people should not have to shovel or snow blow sidewalks. So you know the rule, which is if there's a public sidewalk and it goes right in front of your house, you're supposed to maintain it.
Yes.
And that is, I know, because they've been put in right here, not far from my house, in the time we've lived here, and people grumble because they don't want to have to go out there and shovel those sidewalks.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So.
and the next one down there says the same thing. Another.
Yeah, so what I'll do is do a count.
Now, what's this? None. We don't need any more.
We don't need any more maintenance.
Tell these soccer man's too damn bad. Whoa. Somebody got a little annoyed there. Let's see. Have enough sidewalks. No sidewalks. Oh, down Montgomery Wyben Road. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's true. That's those kind of roads people go really fast on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a.
Yeah, and that's the problem. There aren't sidewalks that are safe for people, and people. I know on our side of Glendale Road where I don't walk it. Cars go flying around, and you can't see around the corners, and the berm is very narrow.
Well, and then see, go up right at the very top. Right there is like, people gave like 5 choices right there. Coleman Road, East Street.
Palmer Meadow.
Subway, Palmer Meadow, Route 10,
Then
extend
down
down
Palmer Meadow, yeah,
College Highway, Gun Road to extension to Fletcher's. Huh.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the word cloud doesn't, it's nice, but it doesn't necessarily show. what
Yeah.
it is.
No, I think we need to definitely capture this, because I think that's, should we ever find ourselves in a way to do more sidewalks, and right, we've got this subdivision policy, right, Cindy, that if the developers don't put in a double sidewalk, they put away money toward the future building of sidewalks, right? So, I mean,
Right.
I think we have to have something that would be maybe a list that would give us a little bit of a prioritization feel anyway, not that it wouldn't have to be re-verified probably as we got closer to doing a project, but this would really be something helpful, I think.
But that's such a what is it, $15,000?
It has to, it's a percentage. They have to come up with what it would have cost to put in the sidewalk. And then there's this whole thing about what would the state charge versus what would a private developer charge. It was a long discussion, and
Okay.
it's a formula, but it's only applied to 3 subdivisions, It's only applied to the one up off Fulmer Road, the Quigley Estates, and then the 2 newest ones that are going in the Pequot Road area. So we don't have a lot of new subdivisions that it applies to. Going forward, there's the question: how many new subdivisions do we want?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't ask that question, did we?
We didn't know.
Yeah.
That'll be the next plan.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will put this in a more user-friendly version.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be really important on that one, personally. I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, that way you can also quantify things.
Right. Yeah. But I think it has to help us have a guide of some sort for someday in the future.
Mhm. So this is your
Okay. What do we got?
strategies.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
okay. So our broadband came up pretty strong. Yeah. Open space, broadband.
So Ken, is this ordered in terms of how the survey listed them? One, first one was develop public utility, second renewable
Yeah.
energy. Okay,
It
so
is.
this isn't
Yes.
ordered in any other way. Okay, so my thought was to combine the first 2, 4 and 5 strongly, 4 and 5 to strongly support, and add those 2 figures all the way down to come up with percentage of what people wanted. That
Yeah.
was a thought I had.
Yeah.
Well, and it may be, once we did that, then to actually present this, we might want to then show them in that rank order, right?
Yeah, it'd be easier to see. Yeah.
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 Because right now, the public utility, there's definitely interest there. Land for open space. Now, where's our magical, okay, the greenway's down there. Acquire land for Sheldon bike path. Okay.
That's like the biggest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah. And that one was kind of confusing because that was sort of there. Kind of, in my mind, that one tied in, the last one tied into the
Yes.
bike path anyway, but
Yes.
I don't know how we ended up with both of those, but we did. I don't remember. So repurposing building was sort of up in there too. So that would be our fire and police station, maybe. Repurposing the existing municipal building. Now it was, okay, so. Now look at the buy land to build a public safety complex. That's pretty strong all the way across the board there. In terms of the breakout of numbers.
Yep. No, people really want it. Look at it from neutral,
But and people don't want to buy the land though. On the left too, right?
Mhm.
Oppose, and they don't want to pay for it. Yeah.
And look at the sewer system. That's pretty high too.
I don't know, mixed
Yeah.
feedback on the public
Yeah.
safety complex.
Yeah, that's kind of mixed. But then, public sewer system is actually very neutral. I mean, it wasn't as strong as I thought it would be, frankly.
Where is that one?
Right below the public safety.
Oh, right in front of me.
So the middle one, 339 for neutral.
Yeah,
Interesting.
But I'm adding the 4 and 5 percentages together.
Oh, I see.
That
Oh,
gives me an idea that there's strong interest. So some of those percentages are pretty
even
high.
if you don't, this, to me, in a survey with not a lot of mandates, there's 3 here that kind of jump out, 3 or 4.
Well, and then your next question is prioritizing them.
right. So we've got what? We've got the internet. We've got the bike path. Land for open space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do the math in my head here.
Looks
What's
like public safety. No?
Or renewable energy, is it? Which one?
Yeah. Not public safety.
I'm looking at
50s.
solid charts. I'm sorry. You're right.
Actually, renewable energy comes up there, actually.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting.
So Ken, how
Yeah.
would you take, oh, you did it right here.
This was the second question. Remember you could drag the priorities in the order that you wanted,
Oh,
the top 5. So the top 5 were these.
Oh, you just made us do that for nothing.
Okay.
Okay. So what do we got?
Land, open space, renewable energy, and bike path and greenways.
Okay. Well, we did our math right. Anyway. Yeah, that bike paths and greenways, that's interesting. Like I say, that kind of, I'm not sure what we were really intending by that one myself. Does anybody remember?
No.
Which one, Chris?
Develop the bicycle paths and greenways in addition to the bike path itself. I don't know why the one that's ranked number 5 there.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure.
think it was just because they are distinct when you think about them.
Yeah.
The greenway could be more of a walking path, or
Yeah.
you don't necessarily want to limit your biking options to just that one trail.
Right. Yeah.
There are interests for even additional biking.
Yeah. So linking open space and neighborhoods kind of thing. Yeah. Just trying to visualize
But
that.
certainly they're related, so
Mm-hmm.
you
And
could be justified in combining them.
Yeah.
Easthampton just got a grant to connect, like neighborhoods or sections of streets from one to the other with new sidewalks.
Oh, really?
Yep.
What kind of a grant? Was it a state grant?
Yes, Mass DOT,
Oh,
Complete streets.
complete
Mm.
streets, right.
oh, okay.
Not like that thing in Northampton, right?
No, not the sidewalk. This is.
Now, Ken, just quickly on 7 and 8.
Yep.
Why is 7 before 8? Because the number of rankings is different, but the score is higher. Why? Explain
I
7 and
would
8.
probably suggest that if you were to look at these two up here, that was what? Invest in sewer, water, and the municipal building.
Yeah. Right. Now there's one second from the bottom and fourth from the bottom. You had more people choose.
Heavily weighted in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because it took into account this neutral, how there was a larger amount of neutral votes versus this one. And I mean, these are pretty similar, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that was why it was weighted as such.
That makes sense.
And then this is the land use section.
Yeah, this one, I think this whole question was very confusing, actually, in some ways, because I think people not knowing anything about the zoning bylaws, they left it blank on the paper copies anyway. A lot of people left these questions blank.
Mhm.
You know, we stopped short of trying to define too much, which I think we had to do in order to make this manageable, but it wasn't the easiest question, I think, for people to tackle.
I mean, this is pretty consistent with the priorities of the different types of housing that you established earlier.
Uh-huh.
With strongly oppose allowing higher density housing.
Yeah.
Higher density housing.
I mean, I guess that would be my question is how do we take this information and relate it back to which other question relates best to this? Because as a standalone, I think it's hard to digest in my little opinion here. I mean, I'm glad we had so many, for example, that talked about, you know, limiting to the town's water supply. I mean, that got the highest number 5, right? I think, or almost, did it? So the number 5, that was the highest rank there, but how does, I don't know, how does some of this tie back into the commercial development or into other housing issues, or there needs to be some cross-tabbing. I just don't know what it is, I guess.
I think probably cross-tabbing the housing questions with the, you know, the question that you pose with regards to what types of housing you want to see in town. I think also that there may be some idea of this question about the water supply, the development, limiting development to that. There was a previous question on I think it was increasing tax. Well, was it the one before that? I mean, the one that suggested investing in sewer and water. There is cross-tabbing that can be done here.
Okay.
But
what that looks like.
But I would suggest too, you know, as we start looking at this kind of data and dive in, don't ignore, in my opinion, what's jumping right out at us. There are certain things where, you know, where there's strong opposition compared to the other categories, and strong support compared to the other categories. You know, if you're looking for mandates where there are few, there's evidence where there are some. Clearly, people have a strong opinion. So, you know, I'm a fan of cross-tabbing and look at the data, certainly. But I just think we should not ignore first impressions. What jumps out at you for a reason. It's
I mean, also taken at face value, you know, I think this will address some of the ideas that are posed in the land use element of the master plan. And because these are specific to regulatory concepts, you know, I think that they can be addressed at face value, but I do also think that there's an ability to cross-tab and maybe look and see if there's any other analysis that can happen there. But yeah. So that is, and then we have this last question. And I have on that spreadsheet also a listing of whatever they put in for that. Some put their physical address, some people, you know, put their comments about the survey on there. But yeah, so, you know.
And there were more than that. You're going to add some of the other streets though too, right?
Right. So anything that I input, it's obviously not captured here, similar to the one previously.
So does the size of the font represent the frequency that it was mentioned? Is that how you put it together?
Which one? This?
You just did it for aesthetics.
The cloud.
No, it's the way that the survey program, for anything that is captured with a, where you put in a blank, or like it's a blank, and you put in your own answer. If there is a addition, or if there's a lot of a certain answer, you know, that will show up more, like road.
Okay, so
I
it
mean,
does proportionately, the size proportionally reflects the response.
and again, you know, if I can figure out the way to remove these various things like street, road, drive, avenue, that obviously is not helpful for this, as road is the largest one. But yeah, we do have a listing of all the individual responses for that, and we can present it however that's
So
the case.
what you're saying is if there were a number of people that responded that they lived on East Street, that would show up bigger in lettering. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
The road shows up more than anything, just simply because there are lots of roads. in-
Because they're putting
Lots
the
of roads,
full
yeah.
name of their street.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that's interesting. I wonder if you could get rid of that, if that would, allow space for other, but I mean, there's some other names there to add to that list there too.
Yeah,
So,
and you know, this particular question is an optional question. I think
Right.
really the one previously, the number 18, probably could, you know, use a little, you know, help with the presentation rather than a listing of the streets.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can figure out
No,
how
no.
that looks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Obviously-
mind this. I don't mind the cloud presentation for this one. I mean, for the optional question, I think it's fine. I just, I think, we had a whole lot of people that actually did fill in that optional question, which I was glad for, and in quite a number of streets around. A couple of them I had to look up on the map. I'd never even heard of them myself. So.
Yeah. So, I have a couple of questions to look into. A majority of them, I think, that have been identified were required maybe a crosstab of ages and how long people have been in town. And then looking at that last land use regulatory response and see how that can connect to other portions of the survey responses. But I think that, this is the survey report. However, you think the community should be receiving this is, obviously you want to reward the response rate by showing what people actually responded to, right? So I think it may be helpful to share this. I think once I figure out how to remove some of the items in the last question, but unless you're thinking of another way to present the data, doing that, that's part of the next steps, as well as getting started on the plan and writing it based on that. Probably do at the next meeting, revisiting your previously stated goals and objectives. I guess my question, because I was reviewing some of the old documents, there was this presentation that you prepared for the select board. Did that was that a presentation of the goals and objectives as the committee identified being the ones that you should be continuing to pursue? Did that include, or did that remove certain ones based on the status that you were exploring that?
We ranked them, remember, Chris?
Yeah, right. I'm trying to think with Mike. Yeah, we had gone through and we had ranked the highest priorities out of each of the chapters, I believe, right?
Yep.
And then had compiled those. So that report was really looking at the highest ranked priorities from each chapter based on what we thought was still doable or relevant.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
And it also was only our committee. We had
Right.
no community input.
Right.
I think, revisiting that, because I was taking a quick look at what you presented in your original plan, and obviously I think there are things that the town has accomplished. I didn't look and see the difference between the two documents versus the one that was in the plan versus the one that you presented to the select board. But I think that's going to be the next exercise, is doing a matrix exercise similar to what the Open Space Committee did with regards to identifying the goals and objectives to see where we are in the process. Thing is, you don't want to necessarily remove them, but you want to address the priorities, and obviously the survey provides that context by which you're suggesting priorities over others.
Oh, can we just clarify what you just said? You said Open Space Committee. You mean Open Space and Recreation Plan Update Committee?
Correct.
Just
Yes.
little clarification there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a matrix exercise looking at all of the previously at the adopted goals and objectives. I mean, I can fill out some of them knowing what the town has done based on my work that I'm doing with the town, but that probably will be the next exercise.
Okay, now we had done a little bit of that as we went through each chapter. So again, I don't want to, I mean, some of them, I think we felt that certain things had been done, a couple others were in progress, but many things had not really been undertaken.
Yeah, that's fair. If you have notes on that or have documented that in any way, I think that would be helpful to present. That way we can at least use the items that have been presented in the plan and address via the matrix what needs to be moved around and how all of those various goals and objectives need to be accomplished over time. So if there is any documentation that you have from previous meetings, that would be helpful.
We'd have to just go back from our previous minutes, I guess, would be
Okay.
the best thing that would have captured that. Because I think, in order to get to the point where we had the presentation that Mike made to the select board, we had gone through that exercise pretty much at the end of every chapter and just said, okay, this one's been done, this one's been done, these haven't been touched yet, this is no longer really relevant, or
Okay.
whatever, in order to come up with our listing of what we thought were priorities. Help me if I'm wrong, guys. Trying to remember what we did about a year.
I mean, we did, so much talking and so much thinking about every single aspect of every single chapter.
Yeah.
And then to me, what you saw as the select board presentation really was a compilation of all
Okay.
of the, we've talked a lot.
That's fair. And the way that it's presented is easily, I mean, if you have the actual PowerPoint, that could be helpful for me, so I don't have to.
Oh, yeah.
I think I have,
Sure.
you have it, Chris,
Yeah.
don't you?
Because
Yeah.
I just have PDFs. So if I can cut and paste into a document where I don't have to format everything.
Okay, the one that was presented to the select board?
Yeah.
I
And
have
then,
that.
so I would be drawing attention to and marking what is currently on your list, the ones that you've removed. And I'll just highlight them. Because I think, again, it's important to it's important to prioritize, but it's also important to not remove things unless, or show that you moved it and then find a way to show that you moved it,
Mhm.
which we'll do based on, what the committee has already identified in its work prior to this project.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, it'll take a bit to do the full report as you're talking about, but I think we're hoping that somewhere in the month of October, we can present these findings. And maybe it's just this sort of slideshow that you've done tonight. Once we've got it in final shape of any kind of, consolidation of information or something, that might itself be the presentation to the select board and the planning board, and I don't know, post it on our town website or whatever we want to do. I mean, we've got to get it out. This part, I think, is what the citizens are going to be looking for, not so much this lengthy report.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to see the results of what they did. So I
That
think
makes
that's, you know, something we need to focus on for our next meeting in terms of how we present that.
Yes, it really needs to listen to how much long we've been talking about
Yeah.
this tonight. This is
Right.
more than an hour of just a conversation, and
Right.
we more like close to an hour and a half. We can't do this as a presentation. It has to be a lot tighter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we just, I think, call it quits for tonight and figure out when we might next meet. I don't know that we have any other new business but this. Figure out when we next might meet, and then with any, you know, final fine tuning that Ken's going to do on this set of survey results without, you know, really getting into writing the report kind of thing yet necessarily, or how much of it you can do. I don't know how much of it you can do ahead of time.
Just
But
the intro. That's pretty much
Yeah.
all that I can do. Just
but I think,
provide
you know,
that.
for me, some of these like that question on, you know, the priorities from the whatever, from the broadband to the greenway to the, I mean, I think honestly, I think that's what select board is looking for.
Oh, yeah.
They want to
That's
hang
what
their
the
hat on.
town is looking for. That's what the town is looking
Yeah, I think, you know, that's what people want to see. Okay, what are the priorities and how are we going to do it? And so I think if we can, you know, make that very clear in our presentation, that these are the topics anyway, you know, and then, you know, the report can help us do many other things, but I think we've got to get some of the top line results, I guess I would say, back to the residents somehow in a,
Yeah, so if it's a presentation before a joint meeting with the select board and planning board, I think that's fine.
yeah,
You know,
We
we
might-
can do a PowerPoint and then
Mhm.
also putting that presentation online with the actual survey report, the way that it's presented.
and we might even do, I hesitate, I won't call it really a public hearing because I don't mean that we would advertise it in the Gazette, but a public information session or
that.
something where we could
Yeah.
do a broader Zoom and, you know, let the public, you know, publicize it, let people that, you know, wanted to attend. I mean, so we can talk about that, I think, but so let's maybe be thinking about that in terms of how we might present this. But I think this gets us a long way down. So how do people feel in general about what you heard tonight? Are you thinking that our survey got us to some decision points, or have we muddied the waters, or or what? Did we get what we were hoping for?
I think on
Jim,
some
you're muted, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Francine.
Or Francine,
No,
either
go
one.
ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, I don't, to me, we didn't get to Francine's point much earlier in the evening. I didn't see a lot of mandates here, but I see some.
Mhm.
I think there's some information here, and there's more information than we had before the survey, and there are some clear mandates, in my opinion, the
Mhm.
data seems to reveal. So places to start. So
Yeah.
I think it is valuable, and maybe it's valuable because if there's a few clear mandates, then that helps you focus.
True.
And you don't get lost and muddied in the areas where it's not clear.
Mhm.
You know, you pick the low-lying fruit. So here's some
Yeah.
pretty clear mandates and areas to go, and that's where you start.
Right.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And you keep using the data over time.
Francine, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, one of the things I'm concerned with is that we let people know that this is not a new master plan, that nothing that's in this document was created by us. It's a reflection of the planning that went on prior and kind of a measurement of the progress that we made or not, and then reprioritizing those same goals and objectives that were set a number of years ago. Because I think there was a little pushback from people who thought we were doing, I'm trying to remember specifically,
Mm.
you know, a couple of the comments that we received, but I think to put it in that kind of a context. The other thing for me would be to do kind of and I think we can do this, a quick and dirty update of from then to now, what actually has been accomplished.
Yeah.
You know, because people sit and they, oh, well, you know,
Yeah.
they don't know how it works.
Mhm.
And this puts some process in front of
Right.
them.
And just to add, I think maybe some of the things that have been have been accomplished they maybe fall a little bit more into the intangible category. I mean, they're not the big structural things that people see. They may be bylaws, they may be zonings, regulations, they may be whatever that people, unless they're involved in them, they haven't felt them and don't know that they exist, right? So I think having a little mini chapter or something, just really talking about what has been achieved already would be a good idea. So yeah. Christina, any thoughts?
Well, I would like to continue to look at it and assess and make some comparisons. And it seems to me, I agree with Jim, that I think there is some direction here, and that over time we can zero in on the first steps to take, and they will then lead to next steps.
Good. Okay. All right. So with that, can we think about a date for our next meeting?
Just Chris, we've been bumping against a lot of controversial other things going on Mondays. Can we get away from a Monday when we start looking at another date?
Well, it's possible. I don't know. Any other day of the week better for people? Tuesdays are out with the select board and everything else pretty much, but
I was thinking Wednesdays.
yeah.
I don't know what that runs up against. I mean,
Well,
nothing
there's
that
planning board is 2 times a month, first and third Wednesdays.
Right,
So you
I have Wednesdays, different committee, different.
Housing.
No, not housing. Housing's
Oh.
been Mondays, outside of town,
Oh,
other
okay.
stuff.
Okay.
What about Thursdays?
There are some open Thursdays. What about the 1st of October? And before you answer that, everybody, Ken, how are we doing with you and your contract with us?
I haven't looked at the budget. I'm just working.
You're just working.
I'm just working. So we're gonna get you a plan, Cindy.
Somebody's going to yank you away from us, and then we're going to be going, what?
Okay.
But as I've told Chris before, I really appreciate the work of the committee, because I've been getting to do things that, we did a PSA. That's not something that I usually do. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
So I get to put a notch on certain things that I'd like to do within my time at PVPC.
Yeah, that's great. Well, how do people think about, it's about what, 10 days away, thereabouts, on October 1st? Is that too quickly, or?
I thought we were moving over to more infrequent meetings. Are we?
Well,
not?
we were,
Is
but I
it
think
not
we've got to
time?
get these. We've got to get the results sort of ready to do something with in October, which is our challenge. And if we don't have Monday meetings, we were just trying to find another day of the week, basically. So if Thursdays could work, I mean, the 1st seems like that's really quick and around the corner to me.
Right, but we don't have any homework, and if the objective is to get this out in October, get it out while it's fresh, people just did the survey. What are the results of the survey? People want to know.
Yeah.
To Christina's point, we don't need to be, meeting more and more ongoing more frequently, but short term, meeting more frequently to get this out makes sense to me.
Okay, and keep in mind, unless it changes, we're thinking about a special town meeting on October 17th.
Oh, right.
Too. So to the extent, I don't think we'll get anything out before then, but it'd be nice to mention that we're going to get something out soon thereafter, by the end of the month, maybe.
If we're allowed
Well, yeah.
to mention it.
True. Yeah, right. But anyway, how about if we go for a Thursday? I mean, the 1st or the 8th? Anybody? Ken, I mean, it kind of depends on you, really. What's your schedule? I mean, in terms of your ability to pull some further analysis together.
I think the 1st is doable. I think it does create the schedule that you're looking for, as far as being able to maybe convene something in October, or at least present the data by the end of the month versus the 8th. I think it's doable. If it's looking at the crosstabs and maybe drafting a PowerPoint, and we can maybe, Chris, work offline to see what that PowerPoint needs to look like. having some initial conversation on, well, at least having that data and a more complete presentation of the data for the first. That's fine. It's the presentation that we would do to the community, what that looks like. And I think that conversation could be useful in the first. And then also set the logistics that we need to set up for the remaining, for the rest of the month.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Francine? Yeah.
And I just was going to suggest whatever it is that we do, can we put it in a format that it can be broadcast on Easthampton Media?
Mm-hmm.
You know how they run these loops?
Yeah.
That's just another way of getting more information out.
Oh, in terms of having a meeting to
Right.
publicize the data, you mean? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, the results of all this. That's all.
I guess, the question is whether or not this is going, do you want to use my time to present something in front of a committee where, we present this and then, take that portion of the presentation and post it? Or do you want to do something separate from that? And then, as the two select board members present that, that has been presented, or, there's this format that we've put forward as a presentation of the data.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was hoping you could use the same one for both.
Okay.
I mean, that way it would save an economy of time and,
Yeah,
we would be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I can, you guys can give me access to that meeting and I can literally just clip, the presentation that we would present.
Okay. Well, we'll get into some of those details next meeting then. All right. So are we okay on October 1? Shall we do that at 7 p.m.?
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, shall we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second.
All right. I think we'll be all in agreement. So thanks everybody for attending and hanging in there. And thanks, Ken, for your work on
Thank
this.
you.
Yeah,
And,
thank you, Ken.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
And
We know you've gone above and beyond. I can just, I really do thank you for all the work you've put in.
Oh, you're welcome.
a quick announcement. I realize we've adjourned. Everybody here won a jar of raspberry jam. So if you see one on your doorstep, I don't know your doorstep, Ken, but
I'll send you an email, Cindy. I need some jam.
you get the large one. Yes, so that's because you're all the winners. And okay,
I can tell you that it's really good. I've had it before.
Very
Love
good.
and you give me the jars back, and I fill them again next year. So,
That's right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I
okay.
did, just for what it's worth, I did get a little gift certificate to Brittany for Sheldon's ice cream. That she was technically
That's
the real
nice.
winner.
Yes.
They close in
Me
about
too.
a week, so I hope she gets it eaten pretty quick, but they're shutting down very soon. All right, guys, that's it. So thanks
Okay.
much. Have a
night,
great week, and we'll
everybody.
see you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Ken.
Bye.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned, 8:54.